Most comic characters come in one flavor. Tall man, rippling muscles, sometimes with a cape, sometimes without, sometimes no shirt, sometimes the man is a woman. Rarely do you get a lot of variation. The occasional alien, sometimes you get a tree, sometimes you get a raccoon. This is the story of how a Beatles song inspired a joke character that hung around for almost 40 years and then suddenly was carrying a blockbuster film. It's the story of Rocket Raccoon. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. Hi, thanks for watching. Do me a favor, hit subscribe and the bell and make about one of these videos a week. They're all great, so please don't miss even one. Rocket Raccoon has not historically been a popular character. In fact, his first appearance in Marvel Preview 7 in 1976. After that, he only appeared 9 other times over the next 30 years and was usually only a supporting character, not even the main character in the story, other than his limited series. Rocket's original appearance as Rocky was in a space fantasy serial story in the very back of that Marvel premiere issue, whose central character was a Prince Wayfinder of Ithacon, styled as the modern Ulysses. Rocky encountered this errant prince on Witchworld. While his appearance was very brief, his creators Bill Mantlo and Keith Giffen never forgot him. Mantlo brought him back for Incredible Hulk 271, in which he brought him into a situation where he was seeking the Gideon's Bible from Judson Jakes, a weird mole creature that tried to control the Keystone Quadrant and also used killer clowns as henchmen. If you're thinking this is at once completely badass but also entirely forgettable, you're correct. Sometimes the appeal of a character is as simple as talking raccoon with a gun. And that's great. We all understand why that kicks ass. Rocket Raccoon, whose namesake was inspired by the song Rocky Raccoon by the Beatles, appeared notably in Sensational She-Hulk a few times, their own limited series, and then later frequently after Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning's Guardians of the Galaxy run, which started in 2008. Rocket Raccoon is a partly cybernetic, partly genetically engineered organism from Half-World, a planet that's situated in the Keystone Quadrant, surrounded by a construct called the Galatian Wall, which kept anything generally from moving in or out unless the plot required it. Rocket had captained a starship called the Rack and Ruin as its chief ranger and law officer, with Walrus, a talking walrus, and Lila Otter, who was female cybernetic otter, with the occasional ally ship but frequent opposition from Blackjack O'Hare, who's a rabbit, and his boss Judson Jakes. No pun on the fact that he's a mole. There's also Keystone Quadrant cops. Yes, seriously, they are also extremely forgettable. Half-World was half a world. Half used, even then, a metaphor for the destruction of Earth's environment in the name of greed. Half the planet was a burnout dump. The rest of it was a sanatorium for mentally ill people who were taken care of by diminutive anthropomorphic animals, just like Rocket. Rocket was thrust into a conflict to stop the Phalanx from spreading into the Kree homeworld, the first mission of the newly reformed Guardians of the Galaxy. While Peter Quill was lost to the Negative Zone briefly, Rocket assumed leadership and brought Groot onto the Guardians as a full-time member. It's clearly the Guardians of the Galaxy film which thrust him into the public limelight. The films deal mostly with the concept of family, and Rocket's frequent need to procure other beings' cybernetic limbs and eyes to build weapons. Just after 2014's Guardians film, in which James Gunn used the core Abnett and Lanning lineup for the film, Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars saw Groot and Rocket killed in the final incursion. And of course, that wasn't hardly permanent. Jerry Dugan's run saw the Guardians and Rocket chasing the Infinity Gems. Donny Cates' run saw Rocket return to Half-World, as the remaining engineering in his body was failing him and death was imminent. It did, however, put him in a Gundam as a life support suit. Yes, Rocket piloted an actual Gundam, if not in name, for a very good chunk of that run, and it ruled. Al Ewing's run saw Rocket blamed for Peter's death and self-sacrifice by Gamora, but it really ended up leading to Peter living for like 1,000 years in an alternate dimension and harnessing a mystic power by being in a hot tub throuple and growing a beard, and that let him fire whole suns out of his gun and other stuff. Now, Rocket is the sheriff, or at least was the sheriff, of a very small planet which was destroyed by Grootfall, an infectious calamity in which flaming Groots consume whole planets as a swarm. Why? Nobody really knows, because the story is still unfolding in the current Guardians of the Galaxy run by Collin, Kelley, and Jackson Lanzing. So, historically, team-written Guardians of the Galaxy books have been great, and so far, pretty awesome. Rocket Raccoon is one of my favorite characters, from attitude to design, simply because the idea of a trash-eating, talking, cybernetic raccoon with guns is pretty dope, and like I said, you don't really need to think about it that much. I think he's great, but if you don't think so, I can only pity you, because scientifically speaking, you're wrong, you're no fun at parties, and your genitals are dry. Those are just facts. Facts like, no matter what future lineup of Guardians of the Galaxy is, it's always almost certain that Rocket Raccoon is going to be among them, because there's no other character that's quite like him. Thanks everybody for watching. This has been the Doomcast. We'll see you next week.